Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the 39 Days podcast with Alex and Andrew. Of course, I'm Andrew, and there's Alex.
Hello.
We're back after another 2-week break.
I think 2 weeks.
It's a busy last week, but of course, a huge episode of Survivor just dropped last night. So we'll recap last week's episode, the double elimination from last night. And in the blink of an eye, we're down to 8 people. Alex, what's going on?
You know, honestly, saying we're down to 8 people and again saying that one of us has we have a 25% chance of having someone we picked winning it again. Because, spoiler alert, Hai and Lindsay are still in the final 8.
Oh, well, then that's the point of listening to the rest of the episode.
Oh, you know what? Yeah, you're right. All right. And this is the end of the episode here. But yeah, I think right now we're at the point of the game where it's going to be a slaughter. And we saw last night how emotions are running wild. We're not going to get too much into the latter half of last night because for reasons we'll explain on Twitter.
Yeah, it's worth touching on. We'll throw it. It's worth
touching on, but we're not the people to touch on it, basically.
Exactly.
But other than that, we'll just touch on everything that's happened. So I think we start from the beginning last week.
Yeah.
Which it was
you gotta wrap your brain, right?
Yeah, now I'm just like, okay, let me think.
So it's the actual merge episode.
Yeah, they got back after Lydia was voted out, and a lot of people were just thrown off by that because about half the people did not even remotely expect Lydia to go.
And it's so funny because you see it linger into the vote. That episode, of course, emotions high in the first of 2 tribals this past week. And I think it all stems back to that first vote where Hai was pretty sure that he had Lydia in the bag. He thought he'd pulled in some people from other tribes he had never met before. And his game plan kind of all blew up when he lost his closest ally. And then you really see the development of the subgroups. And I think it kind of took us until 10. The Chanel vote out last week was a little weird. It kind of felt like they were targeting her, but I don't really think they necessarily knew why. They were just suspicious of her.
I think
and then the whole thing was, it was her versus Romeo. But
it was her versus Romeo, and I really want to say that a lot of it was due to Mike because he really did not trust Chanel after she voted for him in the Daniel vote. Because she voted for him, she voted for Mike basically in case Daniel threw out his shot in the dark. And she just wanted to have another name out there in case crazy things happened. Or
if he played an idol. Well, if he caught the vote and he didn't play his idol, then he was out. But at the worst, they could flush the idol. So I certainly get the strategic point behind that.
No, and I totally do too. But I also get Mike's point of view of all the people she could have thrown a vote at. Why would she go for me, especially when he thought they were aligned?
Well, look, nobody likes to be the person for obvious reasons that is the decoy because you're going to catch votes. And if something weird happens, you inadvertently go out. Like we saw with Marianne last night. Jonathan's like, we're going to vote for Drea. We're going to vote for Drea. We're going to vote for Drea. We're going to tell her it's you. Like, don't worry, you're not going home kind of thing. And she's like, well, that makes sense. But also like, no, I don't want to catch a vote. Like if you can ride out that strategy, it may take you far in the game, right? Because it's a big ballsy move, but no one ever wants to be the backup plan because if something goes awry, you're the only person getting votes.
Yeah. And, honestly, we've seen that happen so many times. And at this point, I think the best move is Survivor. If you're trying to pull off a blindside by telling someone it's, someone else when it's in reality them, you don't tell the decoy, hey, you're going to be the decoy.
Well, unless they... Like I get the strategy. It wasn't like...
I get the strategy too, and I get him...
Because he's already aligned with her, and they need someone believable.
And he wants to be truthful with her.
Yeah.
But at the same time, Marianne is so emotional that I feel like if you're Jonathan, telling her, it's going to set off a chain reaction of events. Mm-hmm. And because of that, Marianne, rightfully so, went to Tori and was like, okay, so this is happening. And I'm kind of freaking out because I'd rather not something go wrong and I go home.
Right. So it's funny you mentioned Tori because like we're getting ahead of ourselves. Right, we're skipping last week's episode and going right into the last night's. But Tori pulled off a second straight immunity win. I think for sure she was on the chopping block last week. She was a proxy elimination this past week, and again we'll get into that later on. But I think she was an easy target and just pulled off another immunity win. You could really see the last 2 weeks that people don't really, I don't want to say they don't like her. I just don't think they want to play with her, right?
I don't think they trusted her at all.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's a bad thing on her. I think it's more of a, nod to her gameplay where she kind of put her in a position where everyone realized that she was a better player than they thought. Right. She was much more strategic than everyone thought. And think about it, she was at 2 different tribals. She was under fire in both of those and she survived. So that's not, that isn't everyone else just saying, yeah, I guess we'll keep Tori. That's a lot of that can be attributed to her strategic gameplay. So I think everyone they were wary of the fact that she was a threat, and her winning 2 immunities in a row to start off the merge didn't exactly help her case.
Right. But so again, she would have been the vote last week. But let's talk more about that Chanel elimination because we were very off on our power rankings. We put Mike at the bottom. We put High at the bottom. I think Chanel was towards the bottom.
Chanel was towards the middle. We put Omar like middle-ish, I think. And yeah, we were very off with our.
So Omar, it's a good point too, because Omar was the guy who is playing all sides. And you actually even said the other night that you think he could actually go really far in the game. Until I went back and looked at the votes for Chanel, and he was one of the people who voted for Romeo, one of the 3.
Yeah.
So it's almost like, is he actually in the loop?
That was a big realization for me because I remember we were talking about that. And that whole episode, I was thinking, man, Omar's put himself into a really strong spot, but also a very precarious spot because the second someone knows he's playing both sides, he's going to have a huge target on his back. So he can basically run the game for now, but the second, his cover's blown, it's going to be difficult for him, especially because he's not the strongest in challenges. So unless, he gets an advantage or something, he's in kind of a do or die scenario right now.
Well, and that's kind of where I think the realization that he's not necessarily in as much power as we thought. Just anytime you're that much outnumbered, again, like you were very sure that he was playing both sides and was in a really good position, but he's like clearly out of the loop, right?
Yeah.
He thinks that he's playing both ends against the middle and he's working it, but really, I think people know where he stands. They can work with him, but I don't think they want to.
Yeah.
So
I think
we're going to have to redo our power rankings maybe next week when we're at 7.
Yeah, I think next week's a good next week or at the final 6, maybe just within the next 2 episodes, I would say we redo them. And, by then they could be completely different.
Yeah. Let's talk about Mike though. Cause I know you're chomping at the bit to.
Yeah. I'm very high on Mike just because he came off as the dumb firefighter from Jersey who had no strategic thoughts at all. And he's come out playing a very underrated social game, I think.
Yeah, he's very personable, which I think we always knew, but it was kind of like, he's a nice guy. He'll kind of go with the flow. He'll work hard. But he's actually working some strategy too. And he's very, I don't want to say cunning because that has a negative association as like you're manipulating people, you're lying. But he's definitely persuasive.
Yeah. No, I definitely agree. And he has kind of like a pull within everyone. Like everyone kind of listens to what he has to say. And I don't think he's going to last all the way to the end. I think he's the type that will get, if he doesn't go out next week, it'll be within the next couple of episodes because I think everyone's going to realize that he's a decently sized threat. And I can totally picture someone like Drea or Lindsay or Jonathan just kind of having a realization, because none of them actually were on a tribe with him, and then they'll just kind of look at it from like an outside standpoint and just be like, huh, he's got a lot more power than I thought he did.
Yeah, and he's eventually, well, right now he's the only person who has an idol in the game. Because two of them were played last night, and I agree. He's the kind of guy who's riding around in the middle, but he could very quickly shoot up where some of the other power players quickly realize like he's a much bigger threat than we originally thought he was, and we cannot have this. He's going to take us out before we do. So it kind of like a Shannon Ricard thing, like we said all along. Like the only way Ricard wins this game is if he takes out Shan before she turns on him. Like it's good to work with people, and you think like you can always, but you have to go through some people to win the game. Like you have to be last person standing.
Yeah.
So Mike's going to be the same thing where he's going to work a bunch of angles, but eventually if people want to win the game, they're going to have to realize that he's a bigger threat before he can assemble the numbers and take them out first.
Yeah, Mike's the type of guy that he's not going to win this season, but he's going to be.
I wouldn't be so sure about that.
So let me finish my thought here. It's like Mike is the type of guy in this season that I think, like I said, I don't think he's going to win, but he's going to be the type of guy that gets blindsided to the extent that someone is going to be able to use that to win. Whoever can get Mike out is going to have a very good shot of winning.
I don't know. I'm you know, my pick is high.
I know.
Obviously, and yours is Lindsay, but like, I'm okay with Mike winning too. There's been a strong Jersey representation on this show in recent years. We had Natalie at 21 twice, and Michelle won. Let's just add another one to the mix, right?
Yeah, you're biased for New Jersey people. Let's just put that out there.
Like if they grew up drinking at the same bars that I've been to in recent years now, like it's just an immediate connection. Not that I go to Hoboken or anything like that because it's just way too expensive, but you get what I'm saying.
Yeah, exactly. might be better if you won $1 million though.
Yeah, for sure.
But anyways, yeah. So basically, I think that's pretty much it for last week's episode, because they went into tribal just kind of deciding between Romeo and Chanel, and
Mike did drive that vote because I think he got Jonathan and Hai to flip. They were going to go for Romeo.
And one thing that led up into kind of the hysteria of last night's episode was the fact that Romeo threw a vote on Hai because Romeo was convinced he was going home. And he was really shocked that he didn't, and it backfired on him because, to quote what he said, he put Hai's name down and said it's because he just wants to see him squirm. He wants Hai to be paranoid about, wait, why did someone put my name down? And they got back to camp last night, and Hai was on the warpath to figure out who voted for him. And then he eventually figured it out. Romeo denied it. I don't think he ever actually found out for sure that it was Romeo, but he has a good idea. And Romeo kind of realized, okay, everything just backfired for me.
Yeah, but it's interesting. And I'm actually kind of worried for Hai, because when he voted out Roxroy, because Romeo had a moment like, I need to trust Hai again. So that's twice in a row that he was so sure Hai was targeting him, and twice in a row Hai voted with him to eliminate someone else. So I'm really worried for Hai, because Romeo's the kind of guy where he's been saved in theory by Hai twice, but he still has this vengefulness against him, and I can see him targeting him the rest of the way. So that's worrisome for me.
Yeah, no, I could definitely see that. Romeo kind of realizes that Hai's kind of, Hai's like in his way, basically. Hai's kind of dragged him along and used him as a number, and his best chance of winning is to get rid of Hai in the first place.
Well, anyone's best chance of winning is getting rid of Hai.
That's true. However, the problem is that Romeo really does not have any friends out there now.
Yeah.
So I don't know what his path to winning would be. He has a path. I
don't know if he has a path to winning, but
he has a path definitely to the end, though.
Yeah, he could be a dangerous player where people don't want to vote with him, and as long as he's not like one versus a group of 4 at the final 5, and they'll just be like, no, they'll just pick them off at that point. If it's a situation where, like they kind of alluded to in the preview, that High might be in trouble this upcoming week. If there's some rumblings of that, well, first of all, he'd probably be driving the bus, but that's not a good example. But someone else, right? Like, let's say Drea's getting votes in a week or so, right? And there's 2 or 3 people who are kind of piecing it together. Like, boom, you got a 4th or 5th vote from Romeo. He could just play that numbers guy. Like, I don't want to say he's a pawn because he's kind of like a floater. He's not just someone stuck in the middle who needs to be used to get an elimination, but he could be used in a lot of different ways without having to have any true alliance. He could just be like, well, this group of people wants to get this person out and they need his vote to do it.
Yeah, he can kind of leverage his vote to kind of get people to do what he secretly wants them to do.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And I hate it because he really just kind of wrong place, wrong time. Like, I'm not exactly a Romeo fan. I don't like how he's been very sneaky this season. But he has kind of played a good game in the sense that he's kind of taken the targets off of him. It's like it's kind of reminds me of like a Russell Hantz style game where everyone understands that he's a villain and that he is going to screw them over at some point, but he kind of just somehow skates by because he creates an illusion that someone else is the person to take out at that time.
Yeah, I agree. So it's just, he's not the biggest target tonight, so we don't have to worry about him until we absolutely have to worry about him.
Exactly. Yeah,
exactly.
But let's get into, the challenge from last night, which, it was the same type of thing as last season where once they got to 10, there was a double elimination, double immunity challenge. And this one, you have feelings on the immunity challenge that happened last night. And they were not good ones.
Feelings
not last night specifically, but just that challenge in general.
In what way?
You sent me the picture of it last night and you were like, God, this is the worst challenge.
Oh yeah. Because I think they've used it like 7 times already, right?
Yeah, it's been used a lot.
And you even pegged it like just from a still image, but you're like, oh, this challenge will be over in a minute because of how rough the ocean was. Immediately, then I thought like the time that Jonathan beat the ocean, it was a reminder like, oh yeah, the sea's been violent the past few weeks. Well, at the time of filming in Fiji. So yeah, normally you have people go 10, 15 minutes. Like we didn't have anyone go to the top.
In Karamoan, it was like 3 hours that it lasted. I remember that.
Was that Andrea,
Brenda and Andrea?
Brenda?
Yeah, and they just went, and then they ended up standing on 1 foot.
Right.
Which was
because they were just like, well, we could do this all day.
Like, dude, and Jeff was like, you don't have to. We'll just go until someone falls, but sure. Yeah, but it was rough to watch just because you look at the weather and it's like slightly cloudy. It was kind of windy, and you just knew this was not going to be a fun challenge to watch. It was tense in, just the idea of who was going to win. But in terms of a challenge standpoint, the best thing about the challenges in Survivor is like just kind of picturing yourself doing them and just seeing, normal people doing these challenges. And then you look at last night, Marianne was out in like 2 seconds. Tori was out in like 5 seconds. Mike was out. All these people were just out in less than a minute. And
the biggest thing is because of the balance, the shaking of the water underneath. It wasn't just that they couldn't hold their
no, it was all the ocean. It wasn't their fault at all. It was just the way the ocean was. And then it came down to basically High versus Romeo and Jonathan versus Lindsay. And
that Jonathan versus Lindsay battle was intense.
It was intense, yeah. And I was really hoping that Lindsay would pull it out.
I think Jonathan probably goes home last night if he doesn't win immunity.
I do too. But
then honestly, the whole thing that came of the tribal wouldn't have even been because they would have been like, oh, we're voting Mike the whole time or Jonathan the whole time.
Yeah. I'm at the point where I think Jonathan needs to go. Jonathan and Lindsay right now is kind of the Shannon Ricard of this season, where I think Lindsay has to get Jonathan out if she wants to win. But they're much less like the villain couple. They're just kind of, Jonathan's just playing his own, he's living in his own world, basically.
Yeah. And I don't think Lindsay hasn't done many moves.
Lindsay hasn't done many moves, but she's been kind of the brains behind the operation. Like you saw last night, she poked holes in Jonathan's plan to vote Drea out the second he told her about it. Yeah. And he didn't listen to her.
And he had that weird, like, oh my God, how do I rebound, right?
Yeah.
Like when like you're in an argument that the other person's right and you have to.
He just had like the deadpan stare of, oh yeah, she's right.
And then you kind of just have to fap her out a little bit just to get to a point where like you can finish strong even if you don't win the argument, because you can't just be like, oh crap, I'm wrong, you win, right? Like,
yeah. So I don't know. I feel like that's a alliance in this game that I can see crumbling very fast.
I don't even know if it's an alliance. I think it's just there by proximity.
And they were together on Taku forever.
Right. So they've just been together the whole time. I don't think they have like a final three. In fact, there was a weird final three that was kind of said in passing, and it was Jonathan, Hai, and Mike. Which, by the way, I would love that. That'd be awesome.
Yeah.
I don't see a world in which those three are the final three.
I don't either.
And there's only like what, 4 women left in the game?
Three.
Yeah. So like
Tori
the chance of it being 3 men is likely. I don't know if it will be that grouping of 3 though.
No, I don't think it will. I honestly at this point can see how you said last episode your bold prediction for post-merge was that there was going to be an all-women final 3, which at this point the odds of that happening are very low.
Well, 3 of the last 4 eliminations have been women.
Exactly.
That completely blew up just like that.
Yeah. But at the same time, the 3 women that are left are Drea, Lindsay, and Marianne, who I would definitely say are the 3 strongest women from this season so far.
Without a doubt. Like right from the very beginning.
Tori would have been a very solid grouping in there, but she just got voted out last night.
Yeah. And look, so even though Marianne and Drea both used their idols, they're still flush with rewards. I think Marianne has an extra vote. Drea has an extra vote and a steal a vote and the knowledge is power advantage. Although
Drea doesn't have the steal a vote. She has it's technically a steal a vote, but it's the
the amulet. Okay.
The amulet. Yeah.
One of the levels was that. Okay.
Yeah.
Right. But she has the knowledge is power. And I was thinking about this last night. I don't even know how powerful that would be because I feel like all the advantages that she can ask about are pretty common knowledge at this point.
Yeah.
So like, what do you got? You got to ask Mike, do you have an idol?
Well, I think that's the type of thing that she does that so that she gets the idol. It's not to kind of figure out knowledge.
Do you get it though?
Yeah.
I thought it was just you can ask a question and they have to.
You get it if they have it.
I have to double check that. I thought
I'm like 90% sure. If you say to someone, do you have an idol? Then you get their idol if they have one.
I thought the whole reason I think part of, because in 41 it was they needed to know where to direct the votes when Liana was asking Xander, right?
Yeah, and he didn't have one because he had given it to Tiffany.
Right, so it was a matter of who has the idol, so they knew if they could vote out Evie, I think. And so I don't know. You might be right, but
yeah. Either way, though, I am not a fan of that the knowledge is power advantage at all. I think it kind of it's very. There's a lot of like loopholes in it, and the one thing with advantages up until last season was that they were very set in stone. So the seasons 1 through 40, I mean, there weren't any advantages until like season 11 or something like that. But you had your immunity idol. That was pretty cut and dry of what the powers that it did. Extra vote, pretty obvious. Steal a vote, pretty obvious. Stuff like that. Even like idol nullifier you understood what that did. But then you get like the amulet advantage, which they kind of mentioned in the premiere and have not gone into at all since then.
Yeah,
because it
and
hasn't
we
come up.
still don't even know the specifics.
I have
I'm sure it's
no
published
idea.
somewhere online.
It's
Like,
published. I guarantee you it is, but we still have no idea.
like I get the tiers of it, right? But like we don't know if someone needs to be
If High
eliminated to
Lindsay or
move from 1 to 2 to 3,
or if they have to play it, because nobody's going to play it. Nobody's going to play it just
Well,
to get
how
a
would that-
steal a vote.
how would that work? If the first level, if all 3 are still in play, it's an extra vote, right?
Yeah.
So
And
how
then
do you
it's
get an extra vote if you only use it if other people are eliminated?
Yeah, that's what I don't understand.
So then I think you have to be able to play it.
Mhm.
But as the longer you wait, the more people that get eliminated, the more powerful yours becomes.
Yeah, but then what happens all of a sudden if the final 4 or final 5 is High, Lindsay, Drea, and 2 other people. Then they have the 3 things, and it's just all a bunch of steal votes.
Right.
Because
And they may end up
all
stealing from each other at that
don't-
point.
Advantages don't are null after the final 5.
And we got to check the specifics. The eminent may be 6 for all we know.
Yeah.
Double check that.
So, yeah, it just seems to me like, we talked about this a lot last season, where the advantages this season and last season feel very fluid. Like they're not very set in stone, and I don't like a lot of them.
Right. It seems like every time in the past when an advantage is played, it's like a haymaker, right?
Mhm.
As opposed to this is just like death by 1,000 needles.
Yeah, it's just like, okay, cool. Like if I got a knowledge is power advantage, I'd just be like, neat, I guess. I can just walk up to someone and be like, hey, do you have this? But you can't really use that. Like, you're obviously, for theatrical purposes, you're not just going to walk up to someone and can't be like, so you got an idol?
Yeah. And
Just like,
so
look what I got. You got an idol? They're just be like, why are you what is this? You
right.
know?
So you it's going to have to be played at tribal, because if you ask people on the beach, they could just swap on the way there.
Yeah. So it's just, I don't know. I don't want to spend too much time shitting all over advantages and stuff, because we did that
Maybe too
so
late for
much.
that.
Yeah, and we did that so much last season. And this season, I feel like, has been much less focused on advantages and much more focused on the players themselves, which I really like. There's a lot more. The players this season, too, are a lot more personable. So you kind of get to know their gameplay a lot better. And that was another problem we had with last season, was because everything was so focused on advantages. We didn't know anything about Erica until after the merge. And then she won, Where at this point, if of the 9 people that are left, I could see 7 of them winning and be happy with that,
Yeah. Well, we're at 8.
Of the 8 people that are left, I could see 6 of them winning.
Okay. So who's the 2? I'm assuming Romeo's 1.
Romeo's 1 and Jonathan's the other, just because I don't think there's any chance he makes it to the end.
Yeah, but you said you could see them. Oh, you could see them winning and be happy. Okay. So
Yeah.
you don't even see that.
I don't see him winning because I don't think he makes it to the end. Romeo I don't see winning because he doesn't have any relationships with anyone.
And it's possible, Jonathan, that he's the next one to go, unless he starts ripping off more and more immunity wins.
Mhm.
I love though that he always calls Jeff Mr. Jeff.
Mr. Jeff, yeah.
But
and I don't want to. One thing I've kind of noticed is that we kind of, fangirl over Jonathan on this podcast, and I don't want to kind of talk about him that much, because for all the challenges that he's absolutely dominated, dude's kind of an idiot.
Yeah.
And he's played a better social game than a lot of other big musclehead guys that have played.
Well, I
that have come
think
on
part
here.
of that is because he's at least self-aware to know that if he speaks up, he'll be viewed as a big dumb idiot.
Mhm.
So he at least says, "I'm going to avoid that situation
The
altogether."
thing that killed me was last night how he basically went into that. He's like, I'm the big, strong guy who's already going to be a threat because of my physical capabilities. If I speak up and put a target on myself, I can't come back from that.
Yeah, and then it's just like a very
And then
bullish, stubborn
and then
dude.
he did that at Tribal.
Yeah.
and
I get part of that was
confusion.
well, look, like it's a sensitive issue that they were talking about, and I think he felt as look, many people would. I probably would as well, but you almost feel like the insinuation. I don't want to call them insinuations. They're just having a conversation, right?
Yeah.
About race, and he immediately felt. I don't want to say guilty, but felt like he needed to clear his name, which
he almost felt like he was being attacked indirectly.
Right. Him for just being a part of a certain community, which is
but
the majority of white males.
And the big thing about that is it wasn't his place to speak up at all because he has absolutely nothing to do with the conversation that was happening.
And even more so, there was moments, I think 2 separate times where Marianne and Andrea had to be like, no, we don't think about that about you. Like, we know you're a good person, but like, this isn't about you. So it's
this isn't about you.
So it's like, I understand that you need to clear your name, but like, you don't need to right now. And you speaking,
we're not attacking you right now.
Is undermining what we're saying.
Exactly. Yeah. And we don't need to go into it anymore just because our entire mindset right now is we are not going to go into the whole race debate on Survivor because we can't.
I don't even know if it's a race debate. It's just an
not
open
a debate,
issue
but it's something that doesn't apply to us. We are 2 white males talking about Survivor. We do not understand what it's like to be a player of color on Survivor, much less a woman person of color on Survivor.
Or in real life.
Or in real life, yeah. Obviously.
Yeah.
But I'm just saying, in terms of the game, Marianne and Drea were very, very justified in what they were saying last night. Especially,
and you could like just feel the raw emotion in what they were saying.
Oh yeah, no.
It was the kind of thing where like sometimes when like hot button issues come up, I kind of just get uncomfortable. Not because like I don't like what's being said, but just the fact that it's constantly happening just makes me a little weird. But like that, like they were talking and I was like, go ahead. I need to listen to what you're saying right now.
No,
it was a weird moment, but like, yeah.
And it kills me. And I felt very not almost ashamed of it just because the second they brought it up, I was like, oh my God, they're going to make it a race thing. And then they, we're talking about it. And I got to understand like, okay, yeah, this is a problem,
Yeah. And it doesn't matter like intent. It's not about like, obviously there was no aspect of that in any of the vote outs, but feelings
as to women who are also people of color, it was just their like instincts of this could be something that's happening. And
even if it's not, the fact is like the
fact that it's a possibility, because if that happened to the 2 of us, we would never even have thought differently of it. And that was the whole problem last night.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, either way, it was Marianne and Dre used their 2 idols, which basically meant that it was Lindsay or Tori, and then they just kind of had the conversation and just decided that it was Tori. So,
which is one thing I actually wanted to talk about. Jeff did acknowledge, like, the whole. I don't want to call it a charade, but the whole charade of going through voting. We know be political idols, but part of me still would have wanted that. Like, I hate that he accepted the idols before the vote. Only because I feel like it undermined the integrity of idols and the voting process. The whole point of idols is someone casts a vote for you and it doesn't count.
Plus, it almost seemed like if they're playing their idols right then, it's like they were almost forced into it.
Right. And the other people didn't even get a chance to vote for that. Which I guess they could have. They could have still said, I'm going to vote for this person, knowing that my vote's going to get washed out. But at least you want to, like, you feel validated if you vote blindly and then they play an idol and you're like, well, my vote didn't count.
Yeah.
It's different than saying, like, I'm like throwing a rock at a dead end. Like, I literally, your vote can't go anywhere before you even get to cast it. And that's what I didn't love, but whatever. And the result's probably the same, but
and I think it was more, they just did it because of the conversation they had just had. It wasn't a, like random thing. It was more random than not, I'm not wording it well, but it wasn't something that's going to stick. Basically, it was more based on the conversation.
Yeah, that I think you're right. So that'll be a very unique vote. And then
Mhm.
um so where do we go from here? We
Yeah,
could start to wrap it up tonight as we project the final eight. It
yeah.
looks like Mike might be really rising the ranks.
I
Drea, I would still say is in the driver's seat because
yeah,
she has a lot of advantages, but she is also a very obvious threat. Um,
I would say Jonathan. I don't, and like I've been saying, I don't think Jonathan's as much of a threat now because everyone realizes that he needs to go, and he's a threat in the point that if he gets to the end, he has a good shot of winning. But unless he wins every single immunity challenge from here on out, I don't think he does. So I think everyone is going to be gunning for him the second they have the chance to. And
yeah, it's probably a
we had
safe
put
bet.
him at 1 or 2 in our power rankings, and I would way lower him
Yeah, well,
just
we
because of
will
that.
do it again probably next week, and it'll be night and day. So, like, who's like your dark horse player right now? Who's probably not on either your radar or many other viewers' radar, but like, who do you see making a sneaky play for, let's say, Final Four?
Hmm.
Like, there's some obvious candidates, and then there's some
Yeah.
not so much.
I don't know. I want to say Lindsay, but I feel like she's a little bit more known now. But I really like how she's been playing.
Yeah,
And
I don't even know if her making the Final Four would be considered a hot take though. So like,
yeah.
I'm thinking like maybe Omar, just because like he seemed to have like a really hot start, and then
Mhm.
kind of immediately had like a glass shattering moment where he may not be as powerful as we thought.
Yeah.
But I think he still is in a position where as long as he doesn't get targeted, doesn't get backed into, like they don't have to back into voting for him
Mhm.
because of immunities or whatever else advantages. He can kind of weasel his way
Yeah.
for a few more
Well, like
votes.
I said, he's in a very precarious position though, where he could get it. He could get all the way into the end if he, pulls the right strings. But he also could be out next week because everyone's
And that's
realizing
weird though.
he's
Like
been.
I think you could say that about almost everyone who's left.
Yeah, yeah,
You
you're
still
right.
like your pick though?
Yeah, no, I'm very happy with my pick of Lindsay. Where last year I picked Nasir and I was happy with him more because I liked Nasir as a person. And he was a very genuine person last season, but he was voted out he was voted out, I want to say at 10, 9 or 10 in the double episode. So he
Yeah.
didn't make it that far because people realized like, hey, he's a likable guy. Let's get him out. Um, where Lindsay, I feel like, is a good candidate to make a very deep run into the game. And to your credit too, High also was a very good choice because he's been playing a very good game as well.
I am worried about him this week. It does
Yeah.
seem like he's going to be getting a lot of heat. Now, a lot of these previews tend to be misdirection, so
Yeah,
maybe not. Maybe they showed him and then they showed like Drea saying like I want him out, and that could have been Jonathan. It could have been Romeo.
there's
It could have
four
been
other guys she could be talking about here.
yeah. So who knows?
Yeah. Um, but I think
Well,
that's
actually, let's do a quick update on the fantasy draft
oh
teams.
yeah. So
Throw up the graphic
yeah,
right now.
yeah,
We've
great.
kind of
Yeah, here's the graphic.
so it was ugly for me a couple weeks ago.
Yeah.
I think Alex had what were we at 11, and you were up 8-3.
8-3.
So
Yeah.
just by sheer numbers, it was very limited chance that I was going to lose more people, and I haven't.
And that's
but
what and I said that last pod where I basically was like, yeah, obviously I'm going to lose people here. At minimum, I'm going to lose 5 people, but I just lost 3 of them in 2 episodes.
yeah,
So this is going to come down to the wire, and unless the next 3 tribals are the vote outs of the last 3 women left in the game, you're going to have some people towards the end.
well, I have 2 of the 3 remaining women.
You have
Actually, I have the 3 remaining women.
Yeah.
That's all. That's the only people left on my team, right?
Yeah.
And then
I had Chanel and Tori, and they both got voted out.
yeah, so I have the three remaining women: Marianne, Lindsay, and Drea, and then of course my winner pick is on your team, High,
and my winner pick is on your team.
Lindsay, yeah. So,
but yeah, it's coming down to the wire. I'm still up 5-3. We'll see what happens next week. If next week I think is the defining episode, because if
do you think they're going to do that fire challenge again?
The one that Deshaun had to do last season?
Yeah. When do you remember when that was? 7 maybe?
That was 6. It was 6.
It was 6. Okay.
Yeah. I would say they will, just because it was successful. And I'm going to have the hot take of it's not going to be successful this time.
I wonder how many people will opt out of the challenge, because you're exempt from the only way you are bona fide exempt from that challenge is if you win the challenge or you sit it out.
Yeah. You just
and then
can't
of course
be first out. Yeah.
Right. So then if more people play, you just don't have to be.
And
last.
I think it more depends on what the challenge actually is.
It'll probably be the same one if they do it.
See, I would like it if they did a different one. If they didn't do no, I guess the only way you can do it is an endurance one.
You know which one I like is the like the tripwire with all the ropes you have to climb through, and you have to do like the dominoes with the slats of wood. That'd be a fun one.
I would really like that if they did a challenge where it wasn't exactly endurance, but
actually though in my challenge, how do you come in last place?
No, but here's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
It's more the last person to finish is the one that gets put in the crap position, because then it's much more suspenseful. It's more of okay, if you come in last in this challenge, you might be going home. Whereas if you don't come in last, you're guaranteed to at least have a chance
to finish it.
To have it just finish, and you have a chance to at least make it through tribal. Yeah. You might be voted out, but at least you don't have to go through all this crap that Deshaun had to go through last season.
Yeah. And who knows, they maybe even change that.
Yeah.
Like I know it's the Monty Hall problem, but
and I just the funniest thing last season was how, the Monty Hall problem, all math says, what is it? You should switch. You
have to switch. Yeah. You have a 50% chance if you switch, whereas if you keep it, it's a 1/3.
Yeah. And he kept it and he survived.
He said he had a feeling. He knew he picked the right one.
So I don't know. Maybe they don't even do it, but I think I would like them to do less of an endurance challenge and more of a card challenge,
like a race,
something like a race. Yeah. Because then it's
a puzzle, something like that.
Because if you're adding something like that to a challenge, you don't care as much who wins as you do who loses. Yes. And especially last season, they did that, and Deshaun went out like 5 seconds
immediately.
Yeah. So Jeff, spent 2 minutes hyping up this whole big game-changing twist, and then boom. All right, so it's Deshaun that's going to have this happen. You're like, alrighty then.
Yeah, we wanted a Lindsay versus Jonathan on the Seas battle for the first spot to be eliminated, and then
and now think about it. If all of a sudden it's, say hypothetically they do it next week, Jonathan wins immunity. They're like, all right, so now whoever is last is going to have to do this thing. So then people just start going out, and then say the end, it's Omar versus Romeo. 2 guys who I can't imagine would be good at challenges. That would be very intense, just watching them do their best to not be put in a bad scenario, I
agree.
But I think now on that note,
now we're good.
Yeah, we tried wrapping it up 5 minutes ago and then went off on a tangent. But
that sounds about right for us.
Yeah. But yeah, I think we're in for a very good ending to this season. Hopefully, we get some more chaos, because the tribals we've seen so far have not exactly been great. There's only really been one blindside so far, and it was
great in terms of gameplay. They've been great in terms of viewability.
But. Yeah. No, what I'm saying is there's only been one blindside so far, and it was Roxroy. Um,
And then even that happened so fast, and they kind of
Yeah.
teased like he was one of the names that they were going into potentially voting anyway. So like you knew it was between him and Romeo. So I don't even know if that was a blindside.
yeah, but yeah, we'll see you guys next week, and everyone take care.